Today we are doing our second live Train Brave podcast, and it's all very exciting. And as I said, I'm going to start with a couple of things that have come up for me this week, mainly in a work situation. I'm not going to talk about my personal life again. I think I monopolized the conversation last time on how crap I was feeling, so we're not going to talk about that today. But from a work perspective, there's a few things that have come up for me that Chris and I have discussed, and then you've felt that you've also seen similar things and had similar conversations with clients. And so we'll start with that, and just to kind of open the floor, and then we've got questions coming in, so that's amazing, and we'll start answering those as well. But I guess one of the things that I have really had to deal with a lot of this week, I have had loads and loads and loads of emails. Obviously, I love hearing from you all, and I try and answer them as quickly as I can, but you have to appreciate I'm also still running a clinic at the same time. And so it's been really difficult to keep on top of them, but a lot of emails that have been coming through have all had the same story, really, which is individuals who have been trying to get their period back, or who have got their period back, and really struggling with, I guess, the changes to their physique alongside it. And it's a really, really complicated discussion, I guess, because a lot of it will go back to sort of perceptions of yourself and your body image, and why that's important to you. But I think the thing I want to tell you all is that in my 20 years of experience working in this field, the one thing I can hand on heart say is that every female I have worked with has got their periods back eventually, when their body has felt like it's the right time for their periods to come back. Now, what that means is that stress, physical and mental stress, is decreased, and the body no longer sees that as a threat. But also that actually sometimes you have to accept that your body may not want to be the perceived ideal you see it should be. And I know that's really, really hard to get your head around, because we're sort of seeing images every single day on social media from PTs, from influencers, from many people you know, who are promoting being healthy, you know, whether it's through running, or whether it's through their sporting activity, or through their plates and plates of food that they might put in front of you, whatever it might be. But remember, and it's hard for me because I was like, I'm not going to give away stuff. I know a lot of these individuals, and a lot of them are not having periods. So they may promote this image that you can look like this and be healthy, but behind the scenes, that's not what's going on. And so I guess my message to you guys is again, remembering that social media is one very small part of someone's life, and it's not always the true picture. Chris, do you want to add anything to that? Because I know you've had similar discussions this week with people.
Yeah, it's the ability to kind of filter the, not sure if I have to swear on a podcast, but it's just, filter the bullshit, in terms of, like, all of you are mature, educated people. When what you see is not always what the truth is, and I think we all know that in Insta world and social media world, and a lot of trainers out there I know, and women and men, who are not healthy individuals. I know, like, from working with, well, they're working, some of them we know that are from working with Rini and myself. They've all got their struggles, but unfortunately they are perceiving themselves, they're showing their communities that they can withstand a certain amount of exercise and training and high intensity training, and they're doing, their habits and their behavior isn't really reflective of what their true, like, their state of their health is. And obviously, unfortunately, then their followers are obviously watching what they look like and how they're performing, and then going, well, if they can do it, I can do it, and why isn't it? It's not fair. And these sort of questions are constantly being asked, and the fact of it is, it's just not real. Like, it's not what you're seeing is not real at all. So all of you are educated enough to kind of take a step back and go, okay, like, you've got to think about yourselves and go, it's not real what you're seeing. So yeah, it's one of those things that I think me and Rena are seeing a lot at the moment. And all this education, all this conversation that we have about this is that ability to be able to step back and see the picture for what it really is, the big picture, and not from what we see on the screen.
Yeah, and I think I had a really interesting conversation with somebody yesterday, Actually not about work. It was work, but it was more about education, and it was about science, and it was about studies, and how actually, generally speaking, you need to be studying something for a very long time. The average sort of medical science, they're looking at 17 years of follow-up to get a really good understanding of whether an intervention actually works. And so we were having this conversation because the person I was talking to was a medic, and she was talking about how some of the studies have been put forward around epilepsy and no, sorry, Alzheimer's, not epilepsy, Alzheimer's, and how particularly women should be on a more higher fat, low carb diet because that's what they have been investigating. But the follow up so far has only been 12 months, and they've made these very, very broad statements about how women should be eating if they are diagnosed with Alzheimer's in order to prevent it. And my worry about that is that we've all been there when we've heard the low carb, high fat argument. Even like it's probably been around for maybe 6 or 7 years now. And what I find fascinating is that I'm definitely seeing more and more and more people, men and women, not just women, but men and women who are coming into clinic who have been following that low carb, high fat approach. And now they're starting to see the negative impact it's having on their health. From amenorrhea in women to low testosterone in men to immune function issues, so it's creating more autoimmune type responses. And this is a problem because nobody has studied it for beyond 2 years. Like if you look at all the studies on low carb, high fat, the intervention is 2 years. And so that's not long enough. And I think the other thing was when I was out this morning, I was thinking about, because how my brain works, I was thinking about stuff, and I was thinking about studies, and I was like, in some ways it's really, really hard, isn't it? It's really hard to have objective studies on human beings because we are all different. And I was thinking about our conversations that we were going to have this morning and around this whole like, when should you get your period and what weight should you be and what does it look like and all this kind of stuff, because I knew these conversations were going to come up today. We're all different, and that's the thing. Why are we all trying to achieve this one ideal when actually we're all different? Like genetically we're all different, our physiology is going to be different. You can impact your physiology and your metabolism through your life and what you choose to do with your life. So like it's really important to understand that there is no one size fits all. Although we have a process, particularly when I'm helping women get their period back, and we do get really good outcome, it isn't a one size fits all, which is why when I get messages on Instagram with people going, please, can you help me? Can you tell me that? I can't, because I can't. You're all different, and I need to be able to know your history before I can start to give you any advice about what's right for you. Because for some women, it's all about their training load. For other women, it is a weight thing and it's a genetic thing. For other women, it could be about the composition of their diet. And for others, it's also the mental stress. So we have to realize that everybody is different. So there isn't a one size fits all. And I guess that's why you have to be so careful about the messages that come out on social media.
We often talk about timeline. Like obviously, how when someone comes into the studio or the clinic and they talk about, they want these results, they want quick results, but everyone has a different timeline, don't they? A different background. And if you've been living a certain way for decades plus, and obviously I think got a couple of questions here about being on the pill for 10 years plus, and then you're wanting results within 6 months, like your body has been in a certain state for a very, very, very long time. And so that's become the new, this is a new state, a new sort of homeostasis, levels of homeostasis. So you can't expect immediate changes. It's like when someone comes in, they want to lose weight or they want to get stronger or they want to get faster, but they've done nothing for 20 years. I mean, sat behind a desk, and they want instant results within 6, 12. And this is where, like, obviously in the training world, people are getting pulled in by these kind of big, these people saying they can change you within 6 weeks, but those changes don't last because they're so dramatic or they're so forced that people's habits just fall back into place and they gain that weight or they lose that fitness. Same kind of thing mindset where you have that longevity, how long is that individual's timeline? So everyone's so different. And I know from my personal experience, Polly being on, you know, obviously with 10 years of being on the pill, like we just kind of expected that instant, you know, come off the pill, boom, off we go. We're in, we're rolling. 3 years later, you know, we're still trying to work out what like less training look like, you know, reduced training and improving off, you know, fueling. So, you know, like everyone is so different. It's so different, and you're right. But I think what you've got to remember is this, you know, this timeline: 20 years on this planet or 30 years on this planet. And if you spent the like 15 or 15 years as a woman suppressing things with a pill, and then you want those changes within 6 months, you know, like you're asking a lot of your body to change. Would that be fair?
100%. And you know, one thing to say, particularly, I mean, I know you're not all affected by eating disorders, and I don't want to generalize, but one of the things that we've learned from looking at people with eating disorders and recovering from eating disorders, and I mean all types of eating disorders, not just anorexia, because I think people always associate restrictive eating, but I'm talking about everything from binge eating to even, you know, overeating and bulimia and everything, is that they all affect your metabolism, because they're all kind of, you're basically punishing your body, right? You're treating your body really badly. So they all affect your metabolism. And so we know that it's usually a minimum, and I am saying minimum, of a year before your body's metabolism can really, really return back to normal. Once you have regulated your eating and kind of provided your body with a consistent approach so that it knows that the threat of starvation is no longer present. I know from my own personal recovery, which was a long time ago, but I had no one giving me this information. And I always, sounds ridiculous, but I kind of wish I'd had a Rini who was telling me all this stuff, because I think I would have not suffered quite as much. But with my own recovery, it took, I'd say, probably 2 years before I fully really was able to know that I was okay from a food point of view, in the sense that it took a year for me to regulate my eating, definitely. And then it took another year of kind of sticking to a formula that I knew worked, before I started to appreciate that I could maybe start to trust my hunger cues myself. And so it was a gradual process. And I think that's the thing is, as you said, Chris, everybody wants instant results. Everybody wants to feel better immediately. And that's why we go in search of it on Instagram, right? Because
and now, sorry, and then the danger, obviously, and be really aware, like people who are on the ground, like Reedy, who's frontline, and myself, we're not kind of sugarcoating it. Like, it's going to take time. Like, everything takes time, and if you want results, it's going to take time. You want to make a change, it's going to take time. Like, people out there will try and lure you in with these kind of quick fixes by taking this or doing this or changing that. A lot of the time it's not just one habit, it's going to be multiple habits within your lifestyle. And I think that's one of the hardest things that we found within 3 years it took us, or 3.5 years it took me and Polly, was we thought we could just change one thing and it would be that, and it was multiple variables we had to consider and change. And even then, when we knew what those different variables were, in terms of, you know, decreasing energy output, increasing energy input, kind of thing, all those different things, still the hardest thing was not switching off or dialing back mentally those different areas. You know, like most people here probably love to train, they love to, you know, stay active, and obviously to reduce that is quite a hard thing to do that, isn't it? Would you say, Reen?
Yeah, I think for me, the hardest bit to help people with is usually their physical activity, because again, you have to remember, most people that we're working with probably do way more than they should be, way more than they should be. So to get them back to something that even resembles vaguely normal is quite tricky.
Do you know what strategies? I mean, I'm just saying, but what strategies can people do? Because I know a few of the people here today, like I know I've had these conversations with, and it's, you know, we talked about trying to steer your mind away from the sport or the activity you love to do. There's a few people here I know you're very good at what you do, and it's a passion, whether it's running, it's, you know, whatever it is. It's the ability to, I mean, I steered Polly away by pushing us more towards the business, helping me with, you know, with the business, because it changed her perspective on that, you know, the obsession about being great at what she did. And so, like, it's having that ability to be able to kind of change your focus slightly, like, because it's, you know, it's a way of not coping but trying to balance, to bring a bit more balance to your life, because obviously if you're obsessing about one thing, one area, you're never going to let go of that until you find other avenues to spread things.
Yeah, and if we look at the government guidelines for exercise say 150 minutes a week to maintain health plus 2 strength sessions a week. That's not an awful lot of exercise, right? And if you think about the majority of us, we are probably doing maybe 2, 3, even 4, 5 times the amount that's being recommended to maintain health. So the first thing I would be recommending is kind of getting a grip on the fact that actually your body needs a rest, and the body needs time to appreciate that it's not going to constantly be battered by the stress of physical activity. And we do need strategies to help with that, because majority of people who have a difficult relationship with exercise have it for a reason. It's usually because they want to deny themselves difficult emotions. We don't like feeling uncomfortable. We don't like feeling horrible emotions. We don't want to feel sadness. We don't want to feel not good enough. We don't want to feel uncomfortable. We don't want to feel lost. We don't want to feel isolated. We don't want to feel any of these things. And so it's very easy to project it onto you. But when I train, it's for my mental health. Or when I train, it helps me to feel better, because it does temporarily. It will make you feel better. Of course it will. We know that. Again, there are loads of studies that show that, being physically active improves your mental health. But it is to a point, and once you go beyond that point, there are also studies that prove it can become dysfunctional and negative to your mental health, which is equally as important.
They can isolate you, obviously, can't they? I mean, people we often see it every day, where people become, the passion turns into an obsession, and an obsession then isolates someone, and then they don't do anything else but that activity, and then when you try to bring balance back into your life, you don't have anything else on the other areas to kind of bring balance, or to kind of be able to taper things back. And Polly, again, I'm going to keep using that example, she was a professional, so all she did was train, run, bike, swim, and then to strip it back and go, okay, well, what else, she found it very hard to fill that time when she was so used to training twice a day every day. And so obviously then for me it was like, right, let's get, let's crack on with the business. I need to do this and this, I need got emails to do. Do you know what I mean? So you guide them away from it. But that's the kind of you need to find that to help you in that journey. And one of those coping strategies I would recommend is finding that other thing. What's the other thing that you're passionate about? And is it work? Is it family? Is it a relationship? I mean, there's so many things that should take more time that you probably don't make time for because you train a lot.
Yeah, one thing you can do, and one thing that I found helpful with a lot of clients I work with is to get them to do a pie chart and work out how much time you're actually spending on all the areas of your life. So whether you put your family, your work, your training, your
social
activities, whatever it might be. And I did this for myself not so long ago, and unfortunately mine was all work, which was really sad. So I'm addressing that because we don't want that anymore. But it's a really good thing to do intermittently, because it does help you to kind of work out where you're spending your time and your energy, and then you can do the one you would like to achieve, and when you can see what you would like to achieve, like ideally you want to kind of get it fairly balanced, right? You want to be spending an equal amount of time with everything to a certain degree, although you may want to spend more time with loved ones, or maybe not. I don't know, maybe after lockdown everybody wants to spend time on their own. I have no idea. But I think it's a very visual and very easy way to change things, because you can just look at it and go. The thing I would be mindful of, because I know what you're all like, is that we do have this very obsessive personality type. So it's very easy to go from one obsession of exercise to another obsession, whether that's obsessing about when your period is going to come back, or obsessing about your work, or and it's something that has come up for me time and time again. I was talking to a client yesterday, and we were discussing her issues, and I was talking to her about some of the things I've experienced during lockdown, and I said, the thing is, fundamentally I'm still the same person. and I've realized that I've just projected things onto different things. So in the past, yes, maybe I used food and exercise as my way of coping. But in recent years, I have thrown myself into work. And now there's not a bad thing throwing myself into work. But when it got to the point during this lockdown where I had literally not taken a day off until last Friday because I was so worried about everybody else and I was focusing on supporting others, but equally was distracting myself from discomfort I was feeling, that is also not healthy. So it's having the awareness, and I guess that's something I've definitely learned, and it's, something you and I have spoken about, Chris, in that I have very, very good awareness of my tendencies, and I have very, very good awareness of my behaviors. And when I start to notice that they are becoming dysfunctional, I will talk to someone. I usually pick up the phone to you because I need someone to be accountable to, and I need someone to go. Like yesterday, I said to you, "Do you think I'm doing too much?" Because I don't know. I've lost sight of what too much is at the moment, because it's hard when you're on your own 24/7. It's hard to work out if you're doing too much. So,
Being It's just being human, though, Reen. Like, yeah, all those things you're saying is like being human. Nothing's ever going to be a constant and consistent. Like, you're always going to have these fluctuations, and it's the ability to kind of see it, step outside yourself, and go, okay, I'm doing too much. Like, and you just need to find. All of us are always going to have times when we're going to have to keep try and find balance and make time for different things. And you were going to peak and trough in different areas all the time, aren't you? But it's having that network around you. Again, it comes back to, like, don't isolate yourself. Don't just obsess on the one thing. You've got to have that stronger network. Find those, people around you, socially, professionally, like in terms of just running. You go running. Don't always run on your own. Train with others. It's that kind of a thing where you've got to share, because it allows you to assess yourself. And we all do it. We all obsess ourselves. We're all constantly kind of working out who we want to be and how we want to be better in different areas. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, that's just how we evolve. But like, if you don't do that, you just obsess and you put the blinkers on, you're only going to end up going one direction, and it's going to be down, and into that kind of dark place. So do you want to jump on some questions?
yeah, I think so. There's loads of them, so I think we should. So let's start at the top.
Rachel?
Rachel,
I think, is that one?
yes. Do you have recommendations for a recovery drink for vegans that isn't milk-based, and any vegan vegetarian books for sports nutrition? Many thanks. So the only plant-based sports nutrition book that I can recommend is probably Anita Beans, because she's registered, she knows what she's talking about, and it'll be very, very well balanced. So that's the one I'd recommend. In terms of recovery drink, I mean, there's loads of different things on the market. One of my clients showed me the other day that For Goodness Shake has brought out a soya version, so that would be probably a good option. So if you don't want to take dairy, then that would be a good option if you want something ready made. Obviously, the other option is you can buy some sort of vegan protein powder, and then you can make that up with oat milk, so that you get that good combination of carbs and protein that you need in the recovery period. I think the key thing is kind of like is making sure that you are getting something that's not just going to be protein based. It's going to have that carbs and that protein. Those are also more milk based options. I understand there is a new product coming out, and it's called Enhanced Recovery, and that is basically more pure. It's more fruit based, but it does still, it's always going to have like a soya. It has got protein added to it, obviously, to make it nutritionally complete. So
Wait, no, I'll ask you, what's your opinion on soya?
I don't have a problem with soy. I know people panic about it, but actually, if you go back and look at some of the really the sort of first groundbreaking studies around recovery from exercise, they did a lot of comparisons of milk, soya milk, and pure carbohydrate. And obviously, milk always came out on top in terms of recovery when they're looking at the biopsies of how well you recovered. Soya actually came out second and was better than just having pure carbohydrate on its own. So I don't have an issue with soya. The only time I'd be mindful of soya is if there is a history of estrogen directed breast cancer in your family, which you would know about because you would know about it. But otherwise, there's no reason to avoid soya at all.
Is it Romy? Romy, hi, was wondering what food meals that are good for a vegan as athletes. I feel like I'm struggling to get all my protein in, and I'm a ballet dancer and I'm trying to stay strong during this quarantine. Thoughts?
Okay.
Quite broad.
I'm going to make a statement that none of you are going to like very much, but I am going to make it because I think it's really important. It's really, really, really hard to meet your requirements as a vegan athlete or a vegan dancer. Everybody I have worked with in the last 6 months who has really struggled to get their periods back have generally been individuals with who are vegan, because although it might feel like the healthy way to eat at the moment, it's very, very easy to displace your nutrients and you end up with a lot of fruit and vegetables, which just adds to your bloating and discomfort, but you don't always end up with the energy and the protein that you need. So just wanted to say that because I am seeing basically pretty much everybody that comes into clinic at the moment is vegan or plant-based, and they are not meeting their requirements. But in answer to this question particularly, oh God, it's really hard to give you specific meals. And I mean, I love beans on toast. I mean, there's nothing wrong with beans on toast, right? Like that's a really good vegan-based meal that gives you all your recommended amino acids plus your carbohydrate and your protein. So it's a really great option if you know as a kind of very basic simple meal. Other options, obviously, things like trying to combine, you know, like going back to my roots of like rice and dal. So, you know, rice and lentils, another good way of combining foods and getting the nutrients you need. I guess the thing you've got to remember is that vegan diets do tend to be higher in fiber. So that's why it's so difficult sometimes to get enough energy in if you're doing a lot of training. So you may need to up your intake of fats as well. So things like nut butters, trying to use, if you are using soy milk and stuff, making sure you use the whole bean options, trying to find like using oil in your dressings and that kind of stuff, just to make sure you're getting enough energy as well. But yeah, the key thing is kind of it's making sure you have a balance and you're not displacing it with loads and loads of vegetables. Tofu is great for vegans. Quite honestly, if you do not like tofu as a vegan, you probably shouldn't be vegan, because it'll be very, very difficult to get your protein requirements just through a plant-based diet alone.
Can I just say, like, just echo, like, the hardest thing I find about it is that it requires, to be a vegan, is you've got to be quite well educated and it's quite a high skilled diet to maintain. It's like when people talk to me about keto, and it's like I've got no issues with anyone doing anything as long as you understand what you're walking into. As in, you've got to be well planned. You've got to know you've got, you know, less food groups to play with and less ingredients to play with, and you've got a lot. Just requires a lot more skill, a lot more planning, and more forethought. And a lot of people I work with who might shift into different areas and they try different diets and things. All I ever say is, like, research it and really understand what it looks like on a week to week, month to month basis. Like, in terms of the food groups that you've got to work with, you've got to change your food, like, you know, the menus, you know, that the ingredient list that you're working with, the recipes that you're used to working with, they're going to change. It just requires a lot more skill. And a lot of people who are very passionate about veganism are potentially, they've done their research and they're very passionate about it, and that's all they think about. But if you're an athlete first and then you're trying to be and working on that, just understand that you've got to plan ahead. Like, a lot of my guys I work with, like, the thing I work with you about is making sure they've got enough resources in terms of, like, different types of, different plates of food. And I think this is what Rami's struggling with right now, is that variety, because obviously you suddenly limited all your options. So it just takes skill and a lot of research and education. You've really got to kind of educate yourself on that particular way of eating. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to quickly say to Tina, she's asking about good online lecture seminar programs to learn about ED. There aren't any, but what I will say is that we have just started a mentoring program where we did our first sort of trial a couple of weeks ago, where I did some online work on, I basically did presentations on how to work with people with eating disorders. And so we will be running some more of those. So if you are interested, then you can always drop us an email and we'll keep you in the loop with that. But there isn't at the moment even formal that you can just kind of jump in on a webinar and learn anything. So Okay, so the next one is probably one for both of us, Chris, but it's from Abby, and it's how do you recommend structuring training sessions while recovering from REDS? Most of my current training is strength-based. She's a climber, but I'm unsure whether it's more beneficial to shorten sessions but continue training at max strength, or to reduce the load to body weight and just focus on form, etc. I recently tried to reduce load but doubled the length of my sessions to compensate, which I've since been told is worse. I know you guys advise against HIIT type training, etc. So what are your thoughts on length versus intensity of sessions? Do you want to jump in first, or do you want me to?
I would just really simplify it, and obviously I think from my point of view it would be kind of reducing that neurological stress on your week and on your month and moving forwards. So, you know, lengthening a session is obviously you're increasing the volume, you're going to be increasing the intensity by more reps, more time. So I'll be looking to keep the sessions at around that kind of 30-minute, and I'll structure them to where, you know, that kind of strength program format where you're looking for that. You have that required work and then required rest. So you work 60-70%, you know, kind of those decent, you work at a decent weight, but then obviously think about making sure you've got some adequate rest. And again, this is all going to be individualized. You know, this is going to be very much case dependent. And again, this is where the conversation with someone like Rini and then working alongside someone like myself, where it's not a one size fits all kind of mindset. So I think to start with, your high intensity and increasing the stress any shape or form would be a bit bad idea. You're looking to, obviously you want to reduce things, but you obviously want to maintain some form of strength. That you will maintain some form of strength with body weight, but I wouldn't be afraid to use resistance bands, free weights. It's just making sure that you're integrating it and you're not doing too much across the week, across the month. And to do that, you'll be wanting to measure those kind of basic biomarkers, which you would have working with someone like Rini. That'd be a good place to start with?
Yeah, definitely. I think also, Abby, remember, it's not just about the training load, it's about structuring your nutrition around your training. It's making sure that the composition of the diet matches the training load. But yeah, we definitely find that training load and volume is probably one of the I suppose it's one of the pivotal areas, and we have to manipulate, and everybody has been different. You know, some people I've worked with, they've been able to maintain training most days, but up to no more than sort of 60 minutes, and kind of, we always say an effort of no more than 6 out of 10. Whereas other people have had to stop completely because that's the only way they've been able to recover. I think you have to also think about your mindset, like reading between the lines. There's probably an element there that needs to be probably investigated in terms of, you know, obviously being a climber is important to you, and maybe it's around your identity, and that's also why you ended up in a situation of REDS. And I'm speculating, I have no idea, but I think you have to remember that sometimes we have to let go of those behaviors that become familiar and comfortable to us because they're not actually healthy for us. And I think that's probably another thing to be mindful of.
I would just to finish there. I'll probably, if I was Abby, if climbing is your passion, then make sure you carry on climbing to a certain degree, but strip back everything else. Like, focus on making sure that you're staying strong. And in terms of the strength program that you're following, the high intensity is just wasted energy. Like, if you want to be a great climber, and then focus on that, and then your strength program, let's really make sure you're dialing in and working on those key areas that make you keep you strong, keep you a strong woman. But then obviously making sure that you're kind of working towards being a kind of a healthy woman too. Is that?
Yeah, definitely.
James,
Yeah.
or I'm not sure if it is a James. Is it James?
For a person with disordered eating, normal BMI of 23-24 was on the pill for 15 years now. 31 came off the pill some months ago and still no period. Eats deficit were all well due to wanting to have loads of social eating out over the weekend in order to maintain weight. Producer FSH, she weight trains 5 to 6 days per week for 45 minutes with her 30. Okay, All right. There's a lot going on
That's a detailed question, right?
Yeah, it's quite, I mean, it's basically you're asking a very personal question, which I probably can't ethically answer on the podcast because I don't know enough. You've given me loads of information, but actually you haven't given me enough information. So we would need to see bloods. A lot of what I will say is that I had somebody even yesterday email me saying they were told they had PCOS. And can I be really, really clear about how PCOS is diagnosed? You need to actually have 2 out of 3 criteria for PCOS to be diagnosed. And what's happening is more and more people are looking just at the ultrasound where they will see follicles, because if you haven't had periods for a long time, there will be follicles waiting in the ovaries to be released. That's a normal presentation. That doesn't automatically mean you've got PCOS, but that's what a lot of medics are using to diagnose PCOS. You have to also look at bloods. So a lot of people were saying, like the person yesterday who emailed me was saying, oh, my bloods are normal. If your bloods are normal, you definitely don't have PCOS, because to have PCOS, you'd have to have high testosterone levels. So that's something they'd have to pick up in order to diagnose PCOS. But it would be that plus the ultrasound that would then potentially mean that you had potentially could be diagnosed as PCOS. But the other things to think about with PCOS is usually there is often they can have acne, so hormonal acne. They may have excessive hair growth, and also there tends to be glucose sensitivity. So PCOS is thrown around left, right, and centre, but actually it's not that common, and it's very, very easy to diagnose if you follow the criteria. So if somebody doesn't have periods and everything else has been excluded, then it's usually hypothalamic amenorrhea. And, I've kind of said this lots of times on the podcast. It's also in the new ebook. There are lots of reasons for hypothalamic amenorrhea, but usually it's that imbalance between training load and energy intake, potentially the composition of your diet as well. And you don't always have to be a low weight, right? That's something else that everybody thinks they have to be a low weight for their periods to stop. You don't, because the balance could be, the balance could be that you're just not fueling your body enough for the work that you're doing. And the work that you're doing includes your training, but also everything else you do. Like if you are dog walking 2 hours a day, plus your training, plus you have a physical job, running up and down the stairs or whatever it might be, that's a lot of energy output, right? And that's really important to remember. That's something I found in lockdown has been really interesting, is that clients have spoken to me about their training, and then there's like, oh yeah, and I go on a family bike ride with my parents for 2 hours, or I go on a walk with my partner for 2 hours on top of their training, and they're not considering that as output, but that is output. Your body will see that as movement. So I'm really sorry, I can't really answer that question because I don't know enough. And I would probably need to do a full assessment to get an idea of how I could help you. I wish I could do more, but I can't. Sorry.
No, thanks. Well, thanks for sharing. I mean, obviously, could keep the conversation going. Just obviously get in contact really privately. Abby, would you recommend using the contraceptive pill in order to get your period back?
No, is the answer. Just no.
Moving on. No.
Wow.
Moving on.
Let's just
Okay.
a science lesson. The contraceptive pill is a contraception. It's contraceptive, so it means it's going to stop your periods. How can it bring your periods back? I would challenge anybody who would say that, because we know the contraceptive pill stops your period. It prevents ovulation. So it is definitely not going to restart ovulation. So no, you should definitely. And if someone says that to you, challenge them back with just what I've said, because they will probably not have an answer. Their response will be, oh, but it will increase your hormonal levels. No, it won't. It's going to give you a little bit of estrogen, but it's also synthetic estrogen. If you are worried about not having periods for a very long period of time and it's affected your bone health, and you're concerned about your bone health, which you quite rightly should be, then what is actually recommended by the Endocrine Society is using hormone replacement therapy, and you'd have to go via an endocrinologist or your GP to get that sorted. I can't prescribe that. I can advise, but I can't prescribe. So, so no, please don't go on the pill to get your period back, because it won't work.
Just scrolling through there, we got some nice comments. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for the lovely comments. We're trying to just get through. I experienced post-pill amenorrhea. Can I just say that's not a thing? Post-pill amenorrhea. It shouldn't be a thing. You shouldn't have post-pill amenorrhea. I know a lot of people do, but it's not a thing. Doctors didn't do anything except put me on a period-inducing pill, the HRT, for 3 months, but the period didn't persist after it. Okay, so again, that looks like something that needs to be investigated, because there's obviously the balance is not there. So it's probably looking at, again, sometimes we have to honestly look at ourselves, and we might not necessarily want to accept that we're doing too much, or that we're not eating sufficiently, or that we have very set beliefs around food that are preventing us from letting go of what we need to do. So that's just something to consider. Should people exercise when recovering from an eating disorder? That's quite a broad question. There's different approaches to this. I generally do not. I try not to stop people from training completely. However, it does depend. If you have somebody who is coming into clinic who is incredibly underweight and or has already had issues with injuries and stress fractures, and or I can see has an exercise dependency, because not everybody does, then the answer is I would probably stop the exercise element of it, because that individual needs to learn to be able to find new strategies to cope with the difficult emotions that they're dealing with. If somebody has kind of gone through recovery or is going through recovery and weight is restoring, then we do want to encourage them to have some sort of physical activity, because it's good for your mental health, but it's also good for your body and body composition and everything else. But again, it would have to be done under supervision. This is where I bring Chris in, because I think you need to be really under supervision if you are somebody recovering from an eating disorder and wanting to do exercise, because it's too easy to go back to those obsessive and overtraining mentality very, very quickly. It's one of the reasons I have Chris, because I know I have a tendency to overtrain. So I can, if I have somebody who's accountable, like often people have coaches to help them manage their training load and work through, like, you know, building up and everything. I have a coach because I need someone to be accountable to, who's going to say, Rini, you've traveled 4 days this week. Why are you trying to now fit 50 miles in over the weekend? Like, I need someone to be accountable to help me with that. So personally, it's a very individual answer. So I don't know, Chris, do you want to add anything to that?
I think it's having that multidisciplinary team. Like, you know, it shouldn't be. It's never nice to hear it from one person anyway, and it shouldn't ever come down to one person to say yes or no to whether someone, you know, should stop training it. And it's always easier to coming from a team. So we've got a few people that we've done that with, where, you know, like we've got to a point where the bloods and except, you know, everything's, you know, made us to a certain degree discuss this and realize that we need to reduce things, but we've done it as a team. And, you know, like the ability to have a team around you to not control but help you through this journey, because, you know, an eating disorder is a journey, isn't it? Like it's you know, but it starts with baseline metrics and numbers that we work from to define it, but then to get you back to health, like it's going to take a team around you to do that. And structured training, having that structured approach is going to help, because it's going to have that adequate rest and recovery. So, you know, exercise is obviously very broad term. You can, a lot of things come underneath that, but in terms of like the intensity, the frequency, the type of training, exercise or training you're doing, they all mean something. And you need experienced, or you need people who understand you and understand training and understand physiology to really help guide you through it. and it's not going to be one person. It's going to take a team around you. And as I said, like, me and Rini work together, but there's loads of other great professionals out there that have good networks around you, and that's all you're looking for. You shouldn't just be taking advice from one person. Like, you should have, you want that crossover and that synergy between professionals that work together to allow you to come back. So yeah, it's a broad question, but in terms of like, structuring it and bringing it back, yes, you can, but it just needs refinement and structure to it.
Yeah, indeed. Jess, yes, we are going to bring Polly on the podcast to answer your question. We were going to do, this second series was meant to be a load of interviews with different people, but obviously in our current situation, we thought it was going to be tricky, but actually now that we have worked out how technology works, or should I say I've worked out how technology works, we will definitely be doing that. So yeah, we'll bring Polly on probably in the next few weeks, I think, dependent on how George behaves. But yeah, we'll bring her on, and she'll talk about her story and her journey, because I think it's really important. And Rosie, thank you for helping Jess out with that one. I'm also going to just bring in Christina, because I think Christina's story is really lovely, and obviously, yes, I mean, it does highlight the fact that we helped her. But yeah, with Christina, I hope she doesn't mind, but it was really interesting because Christina's bloods were almost normal on several occasions, and it was almost like she was almost there, but nothing quite happened. And every time we spoke, it was usually because she was probably just about to get her, her hormones were going to kick in and she was going to get her period, and then she'd start running or she'd start something physical, and that would change, that would immediately push the hormones back down. I guess that's the thing to remember, is that the body is incredibly sensitive at these early stages, which is why we say it can take a year. Your body needs that year to be regulated in order for periods to kind of fully really get back into the flow of things. But what's really nice here is Christina said, I keep being amazed by the progress I'm still making in behaviors and mindset. Roughly every 3 to 4 months, I have a revelation. And always think of you, Rini, talking about the changes in the brain that take so long. It is amazing. So thank you for sharing that, Christina. And yeah, we are all work in progress. Remember that, like, whether you're on a journey of recovery from an eating disorder or not, we're all work in progress. And the more you can look after yourself and nurture yourself, and I mean that physically, as in through food, but also through space and creating the support and the teams that you need, the more you're going to learn about how you are and what makes you tick. And I've learned a lot about myself in these last 6 weeks that I thought I had sussed, but obviously didn't. And I've got a lot of people to be thankful to, who are actually here on the podcast. So I'm not going to mention names, but thank you to it. But you lot, you know who you are, who've helped me through this. So yeah, we're always working through our stuff, always.
Tess, can I have plucked up the courage 3 times over the years, asking for help, GPs and a counsellor, but it was dismissed each time. I have been using COVID as a way to recover. Can I really not manage this by myself, as I have read, heard, etc., or is it any way possible?
That's a really good question. I think using COVID as a way of recovery is awesome. So great work. You can recover on your own. I did. In terms of trying to getting back on an even keel with food and weight, I did need to get help eventually to work out what the purpose of my eating disorder was in the first place. And I think that might be something you need. Maybe you can work it out yourself. I don't know, but you can do it yourself. But
I think most people need a sounding board.
Yeah.
To some degree, whether it's a partner or someone that you just, I think, just in any of those kind of out of body kind of decisions that you're trying to assess yourself and work through things, your own mind, we're very cruel to ourselves, and we'll all constantly go back on things. So we need that external perception. And yes, probably, I don't know if Tess, you've got people around you, but it doesn't need to be a professional perhaps, because if to start with anyway, but you need to have that perception, somebody else from the outside looking in, to kind of ask you those hard questions, because a lot of the time it's just those it's the hard questions that none of us ask, and they're the ones I ask Rini on a regular basis, and I expect them coming back as to me from her as well, like why are we doing this again, or like these hard questions are the things that a lot of us avoid, whether it's in personal life, business. They're generally it's a couple of simple questions that you avoid asking yourself, which will actually tell you everything you need to know and what you need to work on. So on your own, it's yes, I'd probably say it's doable, but I'd say you're always going to benefit from experienced voice, someone that you respect, someone that like a mentor or someone. Yeah,
I have to say, I didn't have a lot of input. I think I probably only had 6 sessions with somebody to help me really work out why I needed my eating disorder, what the purpose was, and how it impacted my life ongoing. And now I kind of I kind of check in and out with someone. It's never about eating. It's always about my personality more than anything else. I think that's the thing to remember, is that fundamentally, generally speaking, eating disorders are more about your personality type and about your perception of yourself than they are about anything else. So, people often go in search of a nutritionist or a PT or someone to fix their relationship with that particular area, but actually fundamentally it's about what's going on within you, and it's usually your method of trying to achieve some sort of purpose and achieve some sort of worth. So like Chris said, it is possible, but you probably do need to get someone who can be a sounding board.
We have got loads of good questions.
I know, that's coming up. So
let's go. Should I, not fast paced, but should we just let's see if we can do a few, well, not quickly, but you know what I mean, just a little bit. See if we can get through a few for people. Is Huel any good?
Yeah, Huel can be really good if if you're somebody that if you struggle with eating, then Huel can be good, because it has got it is a complete meal. But I think I always say, if possible, try and use real food. But it does have its benefits. I think you just have to be really careful, because the composition of it, for some people, it can actually be quite heavy on the digestive system. It's quite high in MCT fat, so it's very high in coconut fat, and that's not always great for everybody's digestive system. So just be mindful of that. But it could be good. I know a lot of athletes that use it in races in order to keep their energy levels up, and it is a good option from that point of view. How do you know if you're overtraining in lockdown? Chris, over to you.
We just talked. I think there's obviously physical things you've got to be aware of. Is that things like fatigue and all those things. But I think in terms of your training, what you're doing pre-COVID to now what you're doing post-COVID, or during COVID, so should I say? So I think making sure, just looking at what you were doing before this. Have you increased the frequency? Are you doing more sessions now? Is your training volume increased? I think Alexia, you mentioned the home workouts are a completely new style. Yeah, but still, there's still a hell of a lot of stimulus there. Even if you're just using body weight and bands or simple free weight, it's still going to be accumulating a lot of work. And if the frequency is higher than more volume, then the intensity is probably going to be higher as well, because you're trying to create more stimulus by doing more reps potentially. So, yeah, I mean, it's a massive factor right now, and we're 7-8 weeks into it, and some people have been getting by and probably been okay, and they're feeling okay for it. But give it another month. Are we going to catastrophize? Are we going to see a drop off in a lot of people? We don't know, and we want to come out of this healthy. So I would say things to think about is, how much were you doing prior to this compared to what you're doing now? And then look at those other factors. And what other factors would you consider, like physical factors, would you think about, Rini?
I think from my point of view, I think the biggest thing you have to ask yourself is, do you want to do the workout, or do you feel you need to do the workout? that's usually a good indicator of whether you're overtraining or not. Because if you feel you need to do it, then that would be a sign that probably you don't. You know, like I think it's very, very easy to get stuck in that, particularly at the moment with, again, go back to social media, with everybody posting workouts left, right, and center, people, you know, talking about what they're doing all the time. And it can be very hard. I think it's hard enough at the best of times, that whole social comparison, but when we're in the situation we're in right now, it's really, really difficult. So just be mindful of that. Like I said, I think on the podcast last week even, I've muted a lot of people. I've even muted some of my friends, which sounds awful, but I've had to, because I cannot cope with the constant, I've just done 15 miles, I've just done this, I've just done, because actually I haven't got the capacity to do that at the moment with work and everything else that's going on. So I think that's really important. The other thing is, obviously, if you're not recovering between sessions, that's usually a sign. Like if you're quite achy and you're not recovering between sessions, that could be a sign that there's a problem.
Alexia, do me a favour. If you want to, just send me what you were doing prior to this, and then send me what you're doing now, and I'll give you a pretty quick answer probably. So if you, you know, and if it says something like 3 days a week prior to this, and now you're doing 5 days a week, then you know. So you know, just feel free to just do a screenshot on a bit of paper of what you're doing before and now, and then in terms of physiologically, yeah, I mean, there's a number of variables, but you'll know. Rini, do you want to screen through a few of those just to see where they want to?
Yeah, I've just been going through. So there's a lot of people agreeing with me about vegan diets, which is great. And yes, soya protein is very, very good. Somebody asking if they've just started eating some seafish and stuff, would that be enough? I mean, I'm not anti-vegan diets. Can I just say that? I'm not anti-vegan, I'm not anti-vegetarian, I'm not anti-anything. I'm just saying it's just, you have, like Chris said right at the beginning, you have to be really, really mindful of the fact that it's very easy to overcompensate with it's very easy to overcompensate with vegetables and fruit. So yeah, if you're adding some shellfish and you're enjoying it, that's great. It's also going to give you some additional protein and additional vitamins and minerals that are really important for you. So yeah, all good. What else have we got here?
Tash, you want to go Tasha? And that,
yeah, I think that's a really good question. Like, how do you maintain your period once you've got it?
Can we say, like, we talked about this just before we came on live. We talked about how a lot, you know, our goal is to obviously get our periods back. You know, that's our primary kind of health goal, you know, for a lot of us, is to kind of get that. But then we achieve that, and then we kind of, the mindset flips back into, okay, let's get back into training again, and we kind of almost sending ourselves back over the edge, kind of back down towards, and it's managing that mindset about how to kind of manage that now. Because in all honesty, Polly wants to get back into training. She wants to get full back, you know, she wants to get back into marathon training. Like, she's constantly talking about it. But we're now at the moment, we're managing that kind of, you know, we've got her up to this great point now, and when she wants to dip off. So it's not an easy thing, I don't think, once you achieve your goal, which a lot of us are striving towards. But then once you get there, are you healthy for life then? Or, you know, like, and being able to manage that and maintain that, it's going to be a new set of skills, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good question. And your body is incredibly sensitive, like I said, in that first year of getting your period back. And I think it's really important to understand that. Like, that first year is quite critical, because the body is going to pick up on all the stresses that it might occur, whether that's physical stress or mental stress. So the key things are obviously definitely understanding where you went wrong. And I know in Polly's case, a lot of it was around her fueling. Like, she was overtraining, but she was very, very much under fueling. So I'm very, very confident with Polly that if we work around her fueling for the training she wants to do, there will be no issue with regards to her menstrual cycle. So that's one thing to do. In answer to your specific question, Tash, could you incorporate more harder sessions? I would say I generally tend to tell people to wait until they've had at least 3 to 4 consistent periods before you start increasing the intensity of anything. And if you do, then actually it needs to be quite short little bursts. So it might be that within, if you're a runner, within that run, you may start with just doing a little bit, like 10 minutes of a tempo in the middle of a normal run. But you wouldn't necessarily go out and do a really hard session immediately, because that's not going to work for you. So it's managing that load and trying to, I've had some people who they've got their periods back, they've done a bit more, they then email me and gone, oh, I've missed a period this month, and I'm like, okay, well then don't stress about it, like, you know why, and you know that it will come back as long as you, so they've pulled back a little bit, they've waited a few more months, and then they've increased a bit slower. So I think it is trial and error, and everybody's a bit different. But yeah, you do need to watch it. I mean, from my point of view, I got my period back 8 years after my eating disorder, and I've pretty much, well, I've had a period every single month since then, apart from 2 pregnancies. That said, the one time I didn't was actually my very, very first time I went to Nepal. By going to Nepal, I obviously overexerted, and I was actually quite sick, and basically that imbalance was enough for me to skip just one, but by the time I got back and got sorted, it was back to normal. So the body does respond, it's just you have to be mindful. And I think the fact is, if you've been here before, as in that the cause prior to your eating issues, then it's about kind of knowing that, okay, I've probably underfueled this month, or I've probably done a bit too much, and then you can rebalance that.
Tash, I'm just going to jump in there just to finish off. So in terms of like incorporating anything back into things, like again, going from my experience, is that I'd be saying structure it, have a program, like, know what you're doing, so that when you do increase, increase in variables, so increase maybe, so if you start off with 1 high intensity session a week, which is a minimal dose, alongside maybe a couple of other running sessions or strength sessions, then over the weeks you kind of slowly increase that. But then if you suddenly do lose a period, you can look back and go, okay, where did I make those changes? What variable did I change? Like you can constantly look back and go, because if you change too much, or your weeks are always ever changing, you're changing too many variables, you don't know what kind of could have affected that. So Rini had a very clear idea what changed, because obviously she went to a different country and different altitude, etc. But in terms of your lifestyle, when introducing that type of new intensity or more intensity back into your training world, then just have a program that you could look back on, reflect on, and whether you reflect on yourself or with a coach, you'll probably quite clearly see what you did to then obviously shift yourself back over. So in that kind of highly sensitive time, when potentially in that first 12 months, then just kind of make sure you're aware of what you're doing, and you're not kind of doing it emotionally, kind of have more of a structure to it, not like don't restrict yourself, but just have a bit more of an idea of what you're following week to week. So then it allows you to then look back and go, okay, maybe I ramped it up a bit too quickly there, or I did 10%, 15, 20, 30% more than usual last week or the last month, etc. So yeah, just allows you to have a bit more, it makes it easy to reflect on.
This is a really nice question. What are your favorite types of workout, places to run? In one of your podcasts, you spoke about mixing up in lockdown, having some fun. What have you guys been doing? Okay. Well, my favorite place to run is the mountains, which I can't do right now. So that's been quite frustrating. That said, I have got a Sunto 9, which is great, because you can basically use the app, and you can basically plot a route, something completely new, and it then gives you navigation. So I have been trying to explore new places. Sometimes I've ended up in people's gardens, which is not great, but it's been quite fun to kind of explore new places. Bailey loves it, because usually he enters the garden and I'm stood the other side of the wall shouting at him to come back, and he's looking at me very disobediently saying I'm not coming back. So we've had lots of fun. I really like dancing. If I can't do anything else, I'll just dance around the kitchen. I put on usually something like Missy Elliott, and just prance around the kitchen. Best not to look through my kitchen window when I'm doing that, but yeah, that's kind of what I tend to do. Chris and I have carried on doing our online PT sessions, and I've really enjoyed them, even though they've been very different to what we normally do in the gym. I think it's been quite nice, being quite innovative, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work. So that's kind of what I've been doing.
Yeah, no, I've rediscovered bodyweight training. That's for sure. Like as in, home training, and obviously taking a lot of all my members and all my clients, and just kind of rediscovering the how effective you can, how much fun you can actually have with just bodyweight training again. And so it's been good. I think with me and you, Rini, we've been doing some little, we've been sticking to like a lot of the like primary strength exercises that we always look at to challenge, to work on, and then we're just throwing in a little bit of that, little bit of high intensity kind of 10-minute work at the end of a session, just to kind of for entertainment value, because there's so much when it comes to training.
Chris's entertainment, not mine. Let's just say. Not my entertainment in any form or manner, but Chris enjoys watching me make a fool of myself. Yes.
No, I don't think so. No, I think that's important to know as well. Obviously, that's the important thing about training. It should be entertaining. You want that mix of, structured work, but then also that level of entertainment. And it's that kind of, a good program should always have those elements in it. So we always try to make sure it's kind of, it's interesting, and it got a little bit spicy when it needs to be, but we're also still getting that real that solid strength work in there. And with Rini, it's always going to be single leg work and glute work and core work, because it's and all different, making sure that she's progressing over time. And so yeah, I think with Rini, especially at that moment, this whole Zoom world we're living in, it's making sure that this relationship kind of is still fun and engaging, and there's good banter there still. So I think it's super important at the moment with training to keep it light, but a lot of us like to still be focused on getting results, and so it's that kind of mix. It's nice to have that mix, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Yes, Ella is now much better. Thank you very much. She is now back to being a typical teenager, driving me slightly insane. And I can't wait for her to go back to school, is basically where I'm at right now with my teenage daughter. But yes, she is feeling much better. So thank you. It was very stressful, but all good, all good. So
we might be good, Doreen. I think we're.
Yeah. So again, thank you so much for joining us. We we obviously love hearing from you all. And we're going to keep the podcast going, because some of you seem to enjoy it, and we get loads of lovely messages every week, and I really appreciate them, and so does Chris. It's just really, really nice. So yeah, we'll probably do another one of these in a few weeks' time. I think we're going to try and aim to do one every sort of 3 weeks-ish, 3 to 4 weeks, depending on our situation, which we'll know more about on Sunday. But fingers crossed we can still do these. And yeah, just thank you for your time, and have a really lovely long weekend.
Enjoy, guys. Speak to you soon, guys.
Take care. Bye.
Bye, guys.